Hello. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to create a survey using Qualtrics, which is a software program for online surveys. Some of you may be familiar with programs such as SurveyMonkey. This is very similar, and we are going to use it because it is available to you for free through your portal. The first thing you are going to need is a copy of this OP survey, which we will be recreating in Qualtrics so that you can practice learning how to use the software. You may be required to turn in the copy you make as an assignment, and it is also likely that you will need it for future assignments. You should be able to download a PDF of the survey from the lesson. Okay, now I'll show you how you should be able to get to Qualtrics through your portal. Things may look different in your student portal than they do for me as faculty, but hopefully it will be clear enough. You should on the left see some applications, and these are the default apps. To get to Qualtrics, you need to click on More Apps and then toggle down. You should find it here. Once you click on the app, it's going to ask you to log in. So this is Qualtrics. It isn't the most user-friendly software out there, or one that you will likely to be used once you graduate, but free is hard to beat. And if you can learn how to do a survey in here, you should be able to figure out how to use similar programs pretty easily. This software was created for online surveys, but I recommend using it for all the surveys you do. Even if you have people fill in your surveys in person, you can still enter the data manually online so that you can take advantage of the built-in data analysis software. You can learn more about that in other tutorials. If you have an account with another online survey software, you are free to use it for your assignments, but just be warned that if you are using a free account, it may not give you access to some of the features and functions you will need for this course. If you get stuck and aren't able to analyze your data or export it easily, there won't be much I can do to help you. So let's begin. In my account, you'll see that there are several surveys already in here. Your account should be empty unless you've played with this program before. To create a new project, you go over here to this green button that says Create Project. And then you can click on Blank Survey Project and enter a name. I'm just going to call this OP Survey Tutorial. You can name it whatever you'd like. So now it's created a new starter survey for me. So we can begin filling it in. So let's go back to our OP survey and take a look at what we need to do. The first thing on this survey is the text instructions. So we'll need to create that. So if we go into the survey, you'll notice it's already defaulted a question here. Now we don't want a question yet, we just want text. And so all of your options for what to create in these boxes is over on this tab right over here. So instead of multiple choice, what we want is just descriptive text. So that's what I'm going to enter. And then you can click and write down what you'd like. Now I'm going to cheat here a little bit, and if you have the right kind of PDF program, you should be able to do this too. So I'm just going to copy and paste that text right into that box. You can also go in under this rich content editor and change the font, the layout, do a bunch of different things with it. But I'm just going to leave it as that default for now. So next we can start creating our actual survey questions by just clicking here, Create a New Question. It will default to a multiple choice question, and if you were going to create your own question, you could either select from over here and pick which type you wanted to enter, and then you can just start filling in your information. So you can write in your text, and you can write in your choice options. Over here you can add options, you can change the layout. So we will see how this works as we add in the questions from the OP survey. So I'm going to go back to that survey. And we can see here that the first question is this 5-point rating scale. And so those 5-point rating scales are basically multiple choice questions where people get to choose their answer. So I am going to copy that there and go ahead and just add that right in to the question text. Now when I clicked on that, you should see that it automatically populated with some answer options. The Qualtrics program does try and anticipate what you are going to, the answers you might come up with, which can be helpful, sometimes a little annoying, but mostly helpful. And it just reads from your question. So here it saw how likely you would be able to, and so when it saw likely, it guessed what you might be trying to do. But these aren't exactly as the ones we had from the original survey, so we will need to fix them. First, you'll notice that there are many more options. On our survey, we have only 5. So we can go over here and it'll give you your choices, and we can take that down to 5 instead. Also, you will note on our survey that our answers are horizontal, not vertical. And this was done so that when printing out the survey, it would just be more consolidated and wouldn't take up as much space. However, if you were just going to do a survey online, it is probably better to leave it like this because that's just easier for people to do on devices such as phones. But we're going to go ahead and make this look just like our survey so that it's consistent. So the first thing we'll need to do is take it from this vertical orientation to a horizontal orientation. And so we can do that over here on the bar. Now it's made it horizontally. But we need to look and see if our answers are the same. We can't just assume it's going to be the same thing. And sure enough, we have not at all likely, slightly likely, moderately likely. If you look here, it has extremely likely, which is the other end of this scale. We have our extremely on the right, and this has the extremely on the left. We certainly don't want to mix that up because that could really create a problem for us. So what can we do? Well, we could type in here and change them manually, but there's also some neat functions over here. If I go over to this scale option, I can click up here and just reverse the order. So now I'm in the right order, but we still want to make sure the wording is exactly the same. So we're going on here, it has not at all and slightly. Let's look here. So this is not at all instead of extremely. If I had to redo my survey, maybe I would leave their wording. But since it's already been done, so not at all likely is what's listed on that one, not at all likely. And then we have slightly likely and moderately likely. So moderately likely, let's go back and just double check. Very likely and extremely likely. Okay, so we'll double check again. Not at all, slightly, moderately, very, extremely. Not at all, slightly, moderately, very, extremely. So now our question is looking just fine on our survey. So we have 2. You'll notice that they number the questions on this side. Mine has question 3 here just because I deleted something, and then every time it creates a new question, it gives you a new number. You don't need to worry about these numbers. They aren't going to show up on anything. It's really just the program doing its thing. So let's go back to our survey again. And we're going to need to add another question. Now this question is stacked all together. So this is actually a whole bundle of questions that's called a matrix. So that is a different type of question type. So we can go in here and instead of just clicking on the big bar for create a new question, which will give us that default of that multiple choice, this will bring up the panel. And I'm going to put down a matrix table here. So we're going to create this matrix table that you'll see is similar to this. So we'll put our options on the sidebar and we'll put our answers at the top. So we can start with the question. Please rate the website on the following scales. Okay, so we've put that in there. And now we can add in the elements: engaging, easy to navigate, and stylish. And we'll look at our answers at the top. Not at all, slightly, moderately, very, extremely. Not at all, slightly, moderately, Now we've run out of options here. So again, we can go over here and it gives us two things, the statements, and these are your statements. And you could write out a whole sentence here, but these, they just have these simple words, but you could have a whole statement listed there. So those are your statements, and then you have your scale points, and these are the scale or value points on for your answer options. So we need to add a couple more of those. And if we had more items to add to our statements, we would add that up here. Okay, so we're going to add those elements, which are very and extremely. And we have now completed that question there. We will look at our next question, and that question has an open-ended text box, so that's a little bit different. I can still copy this so I have the wording, but we'll go back to our survey and see what we might add to make that a text box question. And if you go over here, most of it's pretty intuitive. So here we have text entry. So we will go ahead and put that down and go ahead and paste that like that. Now this box isn't quite as big as we might like. If we need longer space, again, we always go over here and there's different options. We're going to say essay text box. And so that's going to let them actually fill in with more information. So we can actually drag it here. We can make it however big we would like. If they're going to do it online, it's really okay to leave it. It'll still let them add text. But sometimes it's just easier if they can see what they're doing. So you can figure out what size you want that to be. Next, we have another rating question. So we will copy that, and we can use the default of multiple choice, put in our option, and it is populated again with answers. Only 5 this time because it's seeing our trend, but it still isn't orienting it the way we want, so we know we want to have it going horizontal, so we've done that, and then we need to double check our answer options or values. And here we have not at all well, slightly well, moderately well, very well, and extremely. So it's not at all, slightly, moderately. Let's try that first. So again, we can see this is backwards. So we can first go over here and reverse it. And then we have not well at all. Let's see how we have it worded. Ours says not at all well. So we'll have not at all well, then slightly well, moderately well, slightly well, moderately well, very well, extremely well. So now our question looks as it did in the other survey. Now, the reason I made these changes is because we already had a survey that was completed, so we need to make sure that we're consistent. When you are doing your own surveys, you may have had an idea in mind for how a question should be worded. If you get in here and it makes other suggestions, you will want to consider if maybe what they're suggesting is better, because the system has been designed by experts who have a good sense of the best way to word these questions. And so unless you have a good reason for doing it differently than they might suggest, you probably want to stick with their recommendations. The next question. This next question is another rating scale. So I'm going to show you a little trick. If we go back to our survey, you can click on this survey here and you can say so you make sure you're clicked on this number here and you can copy the question. So now we've copied the question now, and then we can just modify it from there. So sometimes that's just a little bit easier. So we'll change this here, and we will look at our answer options, which are likely rather than well. So we'll go back in here and change this to likely, 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 Likely. Likely. Okay. Only 2 more questions, and these are pretty easy. This first one, have you heard of the brand, the OP brand prior to today? So we can copy that. And what kind of question is that? It's got 2 answer options, not as many as these rating scales, but it's still one where people choose. So it would still be a multiple choice question, so we can use the default. And have you heard about the brand prior to today? Then again, we are going to want to make this horizontal instead of vertical, reduce our answer options to 2, and again, make sure that we do them in the right order. Yes. No. It's trying to, it still wants to help me out. There we go. Yes and no. One more, and that is what is your gender? So we'll go back here. We can do that as another multiple choice. And it anticipated our answers. We need to change the orientation and also double check. We have female first here, so we need to go back and fix that. Oops. And our survey is complete. Now, again, with certain things like this, even like gender, these days you might want to give some more options for questions like that. But the purpose of this exercise was just to orient you to how to create different types of questions for a survey in Qualtrics. Okay, a couple of last things before you finish creating your survey. First, there's a nice option here that will let you preview what your survey will look like, particularly if you're going to do it online. So it will show you exactly how participants will see what it looks like. It'll even show you how it will look on a smartphone, so you can consider if there's anything you might want to change for that. If you are happy with that, then great. One last thing that you can do is click this publish button. What this publish button will do is actually do an evaluation, a critique of your survey, and will give you ideas for how to improve it. So you can click on this part right here and read through some of the information to see what it might suggest for you. You can go here under Learn More, and it'll actually give you a bunch of details that you can dig into. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time digging into that, but sometimes it can give you some really quick suggestions for improvement. We're going to say that we're okay because we've got to stick with what was already created for this particular survey. So we're good to go. So we'll go ahead and do that publish again and just say publish. And now your survey is done. So that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching.